The North Korean aid towards Russia for its war against Ukraine is going to be massive. We have additional informations about this while the fighting along the front line is continuing, and both sides can claim some successes. But more about this in the situation report about Ukraine, about the war in Ukraine. In fresh airstrikes along the against the Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian infrastructure, Russia again used not only Shahid drones but Iskander ballistic missiles. It would be interesting how many they actually shot in the last 30 days, as the concentration of Iskander uses is extraordinary and nowhere close to the past. Iskander as a ballistic missile can only be intercepted with the Patriot air defense system and with some versions of the S-300 that the Ukrainians had, where they probably already ran out of missiles or are close to it. So this is going to be interesting, especially in the context of Russia's likely coming offensive against the Ukrainian infrastructure. And it shows again that the claims that Russia runs out of missiles is probably not quite true. On the northern front, we have news from Belarus. The Russians have not rotated in troops yet. Again, so there were units there training in Belarusian training camps, and once they rotated out, probably to go into Ukraine, no fresh units have returned. So all the Russians have left are some administrative personnel inside of Belarus, but that was it, meaning that right now there is no threat whatsoever of a ground invasion from Belarus for the Ukrainian side. On the eastern front, north of the Siversky Donetsk, we have attacks from both sides. There are fresh geolocalizations of the Russians more or less controlling the area here, west of Liman Pershi. Whether that was conquered in the last 24 to 48 hours isn't absolutely clear. It might be under their control for longer, but at least now it's visually confirmed. So we can say that the Russians advanced somewhat west of Liman Pershi. When that was is in the end not really relevant either. So we can see some Russian successes north of the Seversky Donetsk here. South of it, around Bakhmut, fighting is continuing. No change in territory in the last 24 hours that I can record. And further south at Avdiivka, we have Ukrainian counterattacks that were indecisive, that didn't lead to anything. There are visual evidence of M2 Bradleys being lost and at least one Leopard 2A6, which burned. So it should be a complete loss and not repairable, as the hatches were open and smoke was coming out from the inside. But this confirms that the 47th Mechanized Brigade is at Avdiivka and is fighting the Russians there. This seems to have led to some successes, as the Russians don't really show many additional advances. There is a fresh confirmation of the Russians roughly now controlling this area. This is new. But again, we don't exactly know when, and this is the only change that I can record over the last more or less 48 hours. There are numerous reports from the Russian side that they have advanced at additional positions, but I cannot confirm that they have crossed the railroad line here, and in the south it's inconclusive. I do not see the Ukrainians admitting that they've lost some positions here, and I do not see visual evidence, so some of it might be true. The Russians might have gained additional territory. Unfortunately, I can't confirm it. At this point, I want to tell you that I just made the situation report about Israel's war against Hamas. So in case you're interested in this, I'm going to put the link in the description, and I'm going to link it up here in the info box in case you missed it and want to watch it. You can obviously also see it when you look on the channel page. Further south, we have fighting as usual at Krasnohorivka and at Marinka. By the way, at Avdiivka, we now have a visual evidence of roughly 200 fighting vehicles being destroyed here. The Ukrainians themselves claim it's over 500. There is no proof of this as of now, but at least we have visual evidence of 200 being destroyed right now. And we also have visual evidence of Russian additional successes somewhat here south of Novomikhailivka. Not much has changed here, but another visual evidence of the Russians being right south here of Novomikhailivka in this area. No big change overall though. Further west, no changes, neither at Vuhledar nor at Velika Novosilka at the Oblast border here. Some skirmishes, but no serious change whatsoever. Orikhiv, the Ukrainians were attacking. They managed to gain additional foothold right west of Robotina, and a Russian military blogger is writing that they gained some ground in the direction of Minre. No, let me check. Mirne? In the direction of Mirne, where exactly they were coming here from Shcherbaki. So whether they gained it here or here, I cannot really say. He said that they gained some positions here. The size of the advance by the Ukrainians is unconfirmed. The location is unconfirmed. We just take the Russians admitting defeat basically as more or less a proof that it actually, or that it very likely has happened. From the Dnipro, actually not much of a change either. We have fresh reports about Ukrainian attacks on the towns of Poima and Pischanivka, indicating that the Ukrainians are fairly close to them. And in Krinkri, the Ukrainians are definitely still inside of the town. How much of it they control is unclear. The Russians do admit, though, that the Ukrainians are still inside of the town, so we know the Ukrainians hold a position, a bridgehead on this side. From the Crimean Peninsula, we have a fresh report about massive attacks with Storm Shadows, and even 2 Neptune missiles have been used, according to Russian mill bloggers. According to them, everything was shot down. The Neptune, for instance, even with a MiG-29 from the Naval Air Force. From the Navy Air Force, but whether these attacks happened, whether they damaged something, whether they hit something, I have no conclusive evidence whatsoever. So maybe there was an attack, maybe the Russians were successful in taking everything out, maybe something came through, and I just don't have the proof yet. In the occupied area of Donetsk, there was a whole family slaughtered. According to observers, the indication was towards well-trained military doing it. It all happened at night without turning light on, so the suspicion was that they used silencers as well as night vision devices. Initially, the accusations, the fingers were pointed towards the Chechen Kadyrov's guys who supposedly were refused entry when they tried to take shelter inside of that private residence. But now the Russians say they arrested 2 soldiers from the 155th Marine Infantry Brigade of the Pacific Fleet. According to them, they were the culprits and were arrested now. According to Russian sources themselves, a full column of mobilized soldiers from Chuvashia was taken out with HIMARS. I cannot conclusively say where exactly, but the Russian sources say it was 120 losses in personnel, wounded and killed with this one strike. So basically more or less 2 full companies being taken out in this one attack. Also, Russia has now on satellite pictures stationed a lot of helicopters here at the heliport at the airport of Taganrog. It's well within the range of Ukrainian cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, but unfortunately in this weird war, Ukraine can only strike its attacker on its own territory with the weaponry it's being delivered. So the Russians are actually safe to keep flying expensive planes right under the nose of the Ukrainians, who cannot do anything unless they use their own developed weaponry, even though the helicopters from here probably fly regularly towards Avdiivka to join the fight there and attack Ukrainian positions. When it comes to troop generation, there are now news that Pavel Prigozhin is leading Wagner and is recruiting for Wagner. He's the 25-year-old son of Yevgeny Prigozhin, but now Wagner is supposedly included in the Rosgvardia, so no longer independent recruitment and no longer the recruitment of prisoners. But according to the reports, Pavel Prigozhin is now trying to pick up the legacy of his late father. And the mill blogger Slatkov, the Russian military blogger Slatkov, is saying that Russia will soon equip its infantry fighting vehicles with a newly developed electronic warfare system that is specifically tailored to address the threat with FPV drones. FPV drones are the scourge of both sides right now, as they claim huge losses in material and infantry on both sides. And supposedly the Russians have domestically developed some system to fight this and will soon mass produce it and put it on the tanks. I do not have visual evidence of this. We do not have production numbers or any further details, but it shows us at least that the claims are that the Russians do their best to address the problem. The South Korean military intelligence, the South Korean intelligence agency has come to the conclusion that North Korea already sent 1 million rounds towards Russia, 1 million artillery rounds. This is half of what the Russians plan to produce in 2022. According, I think it was the GUR, the Ukrainian military intelligence had concluded that Russia will likely produce or will try to produce 2 million artillery shells in 2024. That shows us the impact of the North Korean weapon deliveries if they within a month deliver half of the yearly production that the Russians aimed of producing themselves. And in the political sphere, we have some news from Uzbekistan. Here in Uzbekistan, a man was sentenced, was found guilty and sentenced for fighting on the sides of the DNR, the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. He was fighting on their side between 14 and 15. So when the whole war started, and he has with this violated Uzbekistan's mercenary laws. This will obviously be interesting how much it's going to clash with Russia's attempt to recruit as many migrants as possible into its armed forces, but we'll have to see about that in the future. As said before, if you've missed my video about the Israeli Hamas war, then check it out in the description and on the channel. Other than that, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment what do you think about North Korea's involvement and what will North Korea get in return. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.